Rain doesn't fall so much as it hunts her. It spears sideways in cold needles, drives into the seams of her cloak, and pounds the forest until the mud tries to swallow her whole. Diana runs anyway. She has been running for 8 years, through towns that spit at her name, through winters that chew bone, through summers that blister old wounds. Tonight, the storm seems to remember all of it. The wind claws her hood back. The trees lean in like a jury that already has a verdict. Every branch she brushes hisses, "Guilty, guilty, guilty." Under the drenched wool, the scars along her ribs wake like struck iron. They throb with a memory she won't let herself picture, a door burning from the inside out, a hand reaching, a screen cut in half. Pain brightens the edges of her vision. Pain is good. Pain keeps her fast. The hunters behind her are not ordinary men. Boots hit the earth in a rhythm bred for pursuit. Voices ride the gale, low and sure, like those who have never failed to catch what they chase. She leaps a root slick as a serpent, slides, nearly goes down, catches herself on a trunk. Bark flays her palm. Blood mixes with rain and runs in a thin red ribbon. The scent of it slashes through the downpour. Somewhere to her left, something answers, a sound between a growl and a laugh. The storm throws it back in her face. Good. Let it. The forest wants a show. It can have one. She puts her head down and drives forward. A white glare splits the sky. In that freeze frame, the world is nothing but contrast, black pines, white light, her breath tearing out in staggered clouds. Then everything slams back into motion. Water roars in her ears. Not water, river. She's closer than she thought. The ground rolls away beneath her like an animal bucking. She skids to the edge and stops because there is nowhere else to go. The ravine is a dark throat swallowing the storm. 20, 30 feet below, a river surges, froth glowing sickly in the lightning. The far bank is a rumor blurred by rain. Behind her, boots. Voices. The scrape of a blade leaving a sheath. The world narrows to 3 choices: jump and hope, turn and be taken, or do the thing she swore she would never do again. Under her palm, pressed flat to her side, the scars are firebrands. Not hot, something purer, colder, like moonlight set aflame. For a heartbeat, the power hums, eager as a hound straining its leash. Let me. It would be so easy. A spark. A breath. The forest would bloom into silver fire, and every man behind her would learn to scream in a pitch only wolves can hear. No. She tears her hand away and fills her lungs with storm. Control is the difference between a weapon and a disaster. 8 years ago she was a disaster. Tonight she chooses to be a weapon, if she must. Not yet. She pivots, back to the drop, and faces the trees. At first the hunters are only shapes stitched together by rain. Then the lightning finds steel and wet leather and the stubbled faces of men who look like they were born on nights like this. They slow when they see her stance. She's smaller than any of them, thinner than she should be. None of that matters. The cold has burned her down to something that doesn't shake. The closest one lifts a hand, palm out, the pantomime of mercy. He smells like iron and smoke. He says something, but the storm eats his words. It doesn't matter. Diana reads the meaning in his shoulders, in the way he glances at the ravine and measures whether fear might make her clumsy. He wants her alive. He wants her to come quietly. He thinks his want is a law. The river answers for her, hurling its voice up the rocks. The wind throws back her hair. She tastes the old metal of panic on her tongue and spits it into the rain. She has done difficult things barefoot in winter. She has slept in a church where the saints watched her like she was a wolf in a white dress. She has learned to run without leaving tracks. She has learned to bleed politely. She has learned that survival is just endurance with a spine. Lightning rips the hilltop open again, and the hunters flinch. In that stutter of daylight, she sees a path knifing along the edge to the right, narrow as a thought, slick as a lie. It's not a path. It's a dare. She takes it. Boots pound, curses snap, someone lunges, but the ravine's breath is on her face now, cool and rising, and the ledge shudders under her weight. The drop claws at her peripheral vision. Stone teeth bite through the soles of her shoes. Rain turns everything into a trick. She puts one foot in front of the other because the alternative is to not exist at all, and she has fought too hard to not exist. The ledge pitches. Her right foot slides. Her left hand shoots out, fingers finding a jut of rock. Tendons light with fire. She hangs there, body in a trembling line, while the storm counts to 3 inside her skull. When she hauls herself back, her laugh shocks her. It's raw and ruthless and not nice at all. Good. Kindness never saved her. It was the sharp parts that did. The ledge squeezes down to inches. The cliff face kisses her shoulder. Skin tears. The scars along her ribs answer with a soft ringing, like tempered glass struck once. Silver wakes under skin in a thin shimmer. Not now. Not here. She breathes through her teeth and wills it still. The light recedes as if listening. On the hilltop, the hunters reach the ravine. Their lights jitter. One kneels, peers, points. Another risks a step onto the ledge, sees the way the rock chews at space, and rethinks his devotion. They argue with their hands, short, vicious motions. One, braver or stupider, starts toward her. He hugs the wall, moves like a lover, mouth set, eyes on her back. Closer. Closer. Close enough she can taste his breath when the wind swings it around. It smells like caution and old fear. His knife is low, steady, the angle of someone trained to take hamstrings and wrists, not lives. He wants her docile. He thinks she will fold if he can just take the edges off her. She lets him close because she has never been good when cornered. She is something else entirely. When he lunges, the world snaps into a single clean line. She drops low, lets the blade pass over her shoulder and thock into the cliff, twists, and drives her palm into his chest. It's only bone and muscle and rain between them, but for a blink the cold inside her hand answers with a flicker. Silver licks her skin. The man goes rigid, eyes gone wide in a flash of reflected light, and then he's stumbling backward, foot finding air, faith abandoning him mid-curse. The river takes him without ceremony. Silence falls in a ring. Even the storm hiccups. The other lights freeze. Diana doesn't look down. She doesn't have to. She's learned to live with what the water keeps. The ledge angles up ahead. A crooked pine has somehow grown its stubborn life into the cliff seam. Its roots braid through rock. Its trunk leans out over the ravine like a question. If she can get to it, the branches might map a way to a lower shelf, a scramble, a fall into a place that doesn't kill. If she can't, the wind chooses that moment to change its mind. It slams into her from the ravine, greedy and cold, turns her cloak into a sail and her balance into fiction. Hands claw for stone. Fingers skid. The world slants. The river opens its mouth. The power under her skin wakes with a soundless snarl. It rises through her like night turned liquid, gathers along the lines of her scars, threads itself into a net just under the flesh. The rain steams where it touches. For a breath, the air around her tastes like metal and snow. She has time to think no before the ledge coughs a fist-sized rock into the dark and the pine groans and the hunters shout and the storm throws another bolt into the hilltop so close she can smell the hair on her arms singe. Not yet. Not for them. Not like before. She slams her forearm against the cliff. The impact shocks the power back into its cage. Her shoulder protests. The pine's lowest branch scrapes her cheek like a blessing with bad manners. She catches it. It holds. She pulls in a breath so deep it feels like theft and swings her weight toward the tree. Bark peels under her palm. Splinters bite. The branch moans but does not break. She tests the next, then the next, body learning the music of a thing that has survived 100 storms and will survive 100 more. At the trunk, she jams her boot into the cradle of roots and looks up through rain. The far bank is closer now, still not kind, but possible. Behind, the hunters argue with the wind. One tries to shoot. Foolish, useless. The bullet goes somewhere the river will grind it into history. Another swears he sees light around her, calls her witch. The word rolls down the ravine and tries to stick. It has stuck before. It will not tonight. She takes the tree down in a controlled slide, drops to a lower shelf, then another, until the cliff folds into broken steps slick with moss. When she reaches the last drop, she sits and lets herself fall. The landing hits all the way up her spine. Stars blow behind her eyes. The river's roar swells until it drowns the world. She staggers, finds her feet, and moves along the wall where the eddies are lazy and the rocks make promises they mostly keep. On the far side, the forest changes. The trees stand farther apart, as if some older law holds sway here. The rain softens from knives to needles. The ground firms. She doesn't stop. She runs until her breath saws and the stitch in her side becomes a hot coin. She runs until the hunters are only the idea of men who think they can take what doesn't belong to them. When she finally lets herself fold against a fallen log, the storm is a mutter and her hands shake because there are limits to what muscle and will can command. She curls around her ribs. The scars have cooled to a low thrum. She listens. Forest. River. Distance. Her own pulse refusing to be delicate. 8 years of hiding, and still the night finds her. 8 years of silence, and still the past speaks in a language made of smoke and teeth. She could keep running. She will, if she must. But the storm said something when it split the hill, something about endings, something about altars. She closes her eyes and sees a circle of stone older than the arguments of men. She opens them to the dark. The vision lingers like a hand on her shoulder. Not a path. A summons. The wind shifts. Somewhere behind her, far and thin, a howl threads the rain. Not the hunters. Something older. Something that knows her name. If this kind of story sets your blood alight, scarred girls who refuse to break, kings who will learn the cost of command, make a place for yourself here. Subscribe to the Alpha's Romance Library and stay close. Nights like this have long memories, and the next turn in Diana's fate is closer than you think. The forest stills the way a crowd does when a king walks in. Rain thins to a wire-drawn drizzle, the wind lowers its roar, and even the river seems to swallow its voice for a heartbeat. Diana feels it before she understands it, the weight of presence rolling through the trees, ancient and undeniable, as if the pines themselves straighten their spines. Her breath hitches, not from fear alone but from the shock of recognition without memory, a nerve touched that should not have a name. He steps from the storm like it parts for him. Tall, shoulders set as if they carry winter and wear it well, eyes catching what little light the night has left to offer. Not beautiful in a gentle way. Beautiful the way a blade is when it's been honed too long, purpose lit from within. Water slicks across dark hair and down a jaw carved by a life that does not ask for softness. Scars map his knuckles. A ring of old iron circles one wrist, not jewelry, more like a promise that cost blood. Diana. Her name is a low thunder that rolls through her bones. Not a question. Not a reach. A recognition that rearranges the air between them. The sound lands in the scars along her ribs as if they were waiting for it. She pushes away from the log, every muscle ready to split and sprint. Her body remembers lessons the mind cannot afford to forget. Run. Hide. Survive. The litany that has kept her alive chants up her spine. Enough running. No gentleness in it. Not cruelty, either. Just a command with gravity, as if the world would rather comply than argue. The forest listens. She does not. Then the hunters blunder into the quiet like men who think noise is a weapon. Branches snap, boots skid, curses fracture the hush. Their lights chop the dark into clumsy pieces. They see her and shout. They see him and swallow the rest of their words. For a heartbeat the scene holds, storm-damp leaves, the white flicker of lightning far off, a ring of men trying to grow larger than their fear, and between them a single figure who does not need to. Darius moves first. Not fast in a showy way. Fast like accuracy, like inevitability. A hand catches a wrist, a blade skates away into the mud. A knee folds. A shoulder finds bark. Breath leaves a hunter in a sound that won't be remembered. Another rushes from the left, mistake. The alpha turns with the clean economy of those who have learned not to waste anything, least of all effort. The man's weight meets earth with a thud the storm politely covers. No killing blow to savor. No spectacle. Just a ruthless refusal to be delayed. One hunter finds courage, draws a pistol, and lifts it with that fragile mixture of hope and rage. The muzzle wobbles. The shot never comes. Darius is across the space and inside the man's reach before the finger can decide its future. Steel whispers out of the man's hand and into the night. Rain makes a soft applause on leaves. The pistol is gone, and the man is folded, and the Alpha King hasn't taken a breath out of rhythm. Diana watches with a mind split down the middle. The half that has kept her alive counts exits and burns a map into the dark. The other half cannot look away. He is power without advertisement, command without noise, the answer to a question her body learned too young to ask out loud. If anyone ever stood between her and the world, would it hold? He holds. Not for her. Not yet. Simply because he holds. The difference steals the ground from under her feet more effectively than the ravine did. The last hunter left standing backs away with palms lifted, rain threading his hair into his eyes. Darius doesn't chase him. He turns, and the unspent motion of the fight travels through him like music finding its last note. Closer, and his scent cuts through storm, cold ash, iron, pine, war and winter and a heart that hasn't known laughter in a long time. The scars across his knuckles are not trophies. They are ledger lines. Why do you know me, she wants to ask, but the words remain where questions go to be safe, behind her teeth. The scars along her ribs hum like a struck glass. Her power reads him with the acuity of hunger reading a table, strength, restraint, something aching under the ribs that has teeth. He stops within reach and does not reach. The restraint has weight. She feels it like heat. You will not hide, he says again, softer only in volume. The command doesn't lessen. It sinks deeper, through wet cloth and bone and into the place where stubbornness sleeps wrapped in old injuries. She straightens. The rain has snuck under her collar and chills the line of her spine. She is aware of everything at once, the ache in her hands, the sting on her cheek where the pine scolded her, the way the left boot sole is chewed to thinness, the river still arguing with stone behind her, and the way the night tilts toward him as if hungry for gravity. I don't come, her body decides, legs tensing to run, even as something older uncoils, something that knows numbers and chooses odds it can live with. Running now means a life measured in hours, not years. Staying means a different risk, the kind you can't outrun later. His gaze falls to the line of her cloak where it presses against the shape of old wounds. Not a flinch. Not pity. The smallest tilt of a head, the acceptance of a reality he expected to find. She hates that this steadies her. 8 years, he says, not scolding, not marveling. Accounting. The scars heat, an ember's breath under skin. The power wants out. It wants to flood the space and taste whether his command can hold against silver flame. She leashes it with fingers that tremble and a jaw that sets. His own control is a quiet cathedral. She senses it in the way he holds still, a body made for movement choosing not to move. Under that stillness, though, there's a storm familiar to her, the memory of something lost that still bleeds even when the skin has closed. A crown has weight. It has edges. He wears them under the skin. One of the dropped blades lies between them. Rain purls on its edge. He nudges it away with the side of his boot. A courtesy. A refusal to talk through a threat. You know my name, she thinks, and the answer is in the shape of his mouth when he says, I have watched the paths you cut through winters. I know how you vanish. I know the places you refuse to sleep. Watched does not mean owned. It means he understands the art she has made of survival. The knowledge should anger her. Instead, it lands inside like a lantern placed on a floor without shattering. He turns his head slightly, and the night answers him. A low call, not close, not far, a perimeter, not a trap. Wolves, disciplined. Not rushing, not crowding. Held. The kind of pack that doesn't break formation because their leader hasn't. He offers nothing that looks like a hand and everything that looks like a choice. Follow and live long enough to choose again. Refuse and test whether exhaustion can outrun a kingdom. Her breath fogs. The storm drags a last wet sleeve across the trees and moves on, muttering. The forest exhales. Somewhere a barn owl writes a white curve through the dark. 8 years, she answers in her head, a bitter laugh without sound. 8 years of other people choosing for her, with laws spoken and laws written in the way doors closed. 8 years of being hunted for what she could not quite control and condemned for what she would not let loose. To step toward him is to invite another command. To step away is to accept that the world will never stop asking for her blood. She thinks of the ravine and the tree that held because it had learned how. She thinks of the stone circle she saw behind her eyes when lightning burned the hilltop into a memory. She thinks of the way her power rose to keep her from falling rather than burn the men who pushed her there. She steps. It is not surrender. It is a negotiation with the cliff's edge. Darius doesn't smile. Relief crosses his face like a shadow learned how to be light for a heartbeat and then forgot. He turns, not his back, exactly, but enough to say he trusts she will not drive a blade into it, and begins toward the deeper woods. She follows at a distance that can lengthen or close without warning. The wolves ghost the flanks of the night, eyes like fallen stars, bodies quiet as thought. The river fades into rumor. The path they take isn't a path until they make it one. Once, he slows and slides the heavy fall of his cloak off his shoulders without looking and lets it hang between his hands for a breath, an offering made without ceremony. She leaves it there, pride a stubborn animal. He does not press. He swings it back around himself and keeps moving. The restraint is a kind of warmth she hasn't known in years. They crest a rise and the forest changes. The trees thin. The ground levels. Ahead, the suggestion of old stone stands in a ring the moon can almost find. The air has that taste again, metal and snow, the flavor of the place inside her where silver waits. He stops at the edge of the clearing. She stops 2 steps behind and to the side, the distance a statement she isn't ready to translate. The night is a held breath between them. Tomorrow, the dark seems to say, we'll ask harder questions. Tonight, the answer is simple, walk or run, choose or be chosen. The Alpha King waits, not patient, not impatient, the quiet in him a harbor with sharp rocks at its mouth. Diana stands with the storm dried on her skin and the memory of falling fresh in her bones and understands that the peril of the cliff was only the opening argument. She has not been saved. She has been interrupted. And sometimes, interruption is the thin blade you need to wedge between you and the machine that grinds. She moves, and the circle of stones breathes, and somewhere under the earth an old story lifts its head to listen. The shrine is not meant for her feet, and yet it waits for them. Stone rises from the earth in a circle jagged with time, each pillar scarred by centuries of storms, each groove holding moss like old memory. Diana steps carefully, though the ground is no more fragile than her own pulse. The air inside the ring is different, thicker, closer, as if 1,000 eyes have been carved into the air itself. The scars under her cloak tingle, restless, a silent drumbeat no weather can smother. She pauses at the threshold, and all the years behind her rush forward at once. 8 years of exile. 8 years of silence loud enough to bruise her mind. 8 years of faces turning away when they saw what her body could not hide. Every scar has its own story, and she carries them like unwilling children clinging to her skin. The first came the night she shifted. She was only 16. The moon was full and round with promise, and the pack gathered to witness her joining. She remembers the pride in her mother's eyes, the way the air seemed to glow. And then, fire. Silver flames erupted where there should have been fur and sinew. Her bones shifted into a form they couldn't hold, her voice broke into something that wasn't human and wasn't wolf, and the world lit up in screams. She remembers her father's shout as the house burned. She remembers the smell of charred timber, the taste of ash on her tongue. The worst scars are not the ones across her ribs or her back. The worst are the absences, the faces she never saw again, the names spoken only in guilt. People she loved vanished into smoke, and the pack's judgment was swift. Cursed. Dangerous. Too wild to trust, too broken to keep. Exiled before the ash had cooled. Her knees weaken at the memory, and she leans against the cold stone. The surface thrums beneath her touch, as if the earth itself recognizes what she is. Power quivers in her scars, wanting to rise, wanting to defend, but she clenches her fists until her nails carve crescents into her palms. Not here. Not now. She has lived 8 years teaching herself to bury what wakes too easily. Behind her, Darius says nothing. He stands like a shadow just beyond the circle, his silence heavier than command. She knows he is watching, measuring, but not in the way the pack once did. They saw danger and banished it. He sees danger and weighs it, curious to know if it can be shaped. She closes her eyes and the past drags her further still. The winters after exile, when she slept beneath church eaves, begging warmth from stones that had heard too many confessions. The spring spent in villages that turned their backs when rumors followed her name. The hunger that taught her which plants to chew and which to fear. The endless footsteps across lands where wolves howled not in greeting but in warning. She remembers, too, the men who tried to take from her what little she had left. The first group cornered her near a mill, their laughter sharp with cruelty. She still wears the memory on her skin, a scar that runs like lightning down her thigh. But they never finished what they started. Silver fire burst from her chest, searing the air. They fled screaming. She fled too, terrified of herself. Every time the flames rose, every time the scars burned with light, she ran farther. Until running became all she knew. Her breath shudders out, and her eyes open again. The shrine glows faintly, its runes pulsing in rhythm with her heart. The stones are not afraid of her. They welcome her. It is the first welcome she has felt in years, and it terrifies her more than rejection ever did. She turns her head, just enough to see Darius. Rain beads on his shoulders, drips down the line of his jaw. He does not flinch from her, does not soften either. His eyes hold the calm of someone who has buried his own ghosts deep but never forgotten their graves. "You think I am broken," she whispers, not aloud, but into the silence thick enough to carry thought. The shrine answers with a vibration in her bones. Darius tilts his head, as if he heard anyway. The refusal in his gaze is steady, unblinking, "No. I think you are unfinished." The words land inside her as if spoken, and her scars burn with a new heat, not shame this time, but the stirrings of something long denied. Possibility. Destiny. Both dangerous. Both seductive. She curls her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the fire beneath her skin. Memories bleed into one another, her mother's lullabies, the pack's snarls, the cries of those she loved. The weight of it all crushes down until her legs give. She sinks to her knees before the altar stone, breath ragged, heart hammering like a prisoner desperate to be heard. She bows her head, not in prayer but in surrender to the truth of who she is. A girl marked by fire. A woman forged in exile. A wolf who has never been allowed to shift without shame. The runes flare, bright silver, casting her shadow tall against the stones. The scars answer in kind, blazing like a map carved by lightning. The pain is sharp but clean, the way truth always cuts. For the first time in 8 years, she does not force it down. She lets it burn. The storm outside the circle stirs uneasily. The air trembles. Darius finally moves, stepping into the glow. His shadow falls across her like an oath. He does not offer a hand. He does not speak comfort. He stands witness, and the act itself feels like the first mercy she has been granted in years. Her power ebbs, leaving her trembling, breathless, but alive in a way she has not felt since before the exile. She lifts her head. The shrine hums with recognition, the prophecy written in every stone. The one scarred by fire shall choose the fate of wolves. Diana closes her eyes. She is not ready to choose. She may never be ready. But the world does not wait for readiness. It waits for revelation. And she knows now, running will not keep her safe forever. Not when fate has already found her name. The shrine does not release her gently. The light drains from the stones in thin silver threads, retreating into cracks older than language. The air cools as if nothing ever happened, but the silence is not ordinary. It is the silence of witnesses holding their breath. Diana staggers a step back from the altar, the glow still simmering under her skin. Her ribs ache as though her scars have become both cage and key. Darius watches from the edge, face unreadable. He wears stillness like armor, but the muscles in his jaw tell the truth, he felt it too. He knows what it means for a king to stand in a myth and not be its center. The wolves at the tree lean shift uneasily. Some lie flat in reverence. Others bare their teeth. The bond between leader and pack strains like a bow pulled too far. They feel change in their bones, and not every bone welcomes it. The first snarl rips through the night from the far side of the clearing. Not his wolves. Not hers. Rivals. Torches flare between the trees, struggling against damp air, sputtering but defiant. Figures break from the dark, broad-shouldered alphas draped in wet furs, eyes hard, voices carrying the sneer of judgment. The rain had hidden their scent, but now it bleeds through, smoke, blood, and the bitterness of power contested. King Darius, one calls, his voice thick with mockery. We wondered where your loyalty would turn. Now we see, you kneel to the cursed one. The title lands like a stone. Diana's stomach knots, though her scars hum in quiet refusal. She does not step back. Not this time. She burned her own, another growls. We remember the stories. The fire that devoured her kin. You bring her here, to the stones of our ancestors. The ring glows faintly, as if angered by their tone. Lightning claws the sky, white and jagged. The prophecy does not belong to councils or rival kings. It belongs to itself. Darius steps forward, the command in his posture alone enough to stall their advance. You mistake survival for surrender, he says, voice low, even. The shrine does not call cowards. It called her. The rivals laugh, ugly and sharp. Or perhaps she forced it awake. Witches do that. They trick the stones with blood. The words coil through the clearing, feeding the unease already circling Diana's chest. Her scars heat, flickering silver. For a moment, the memory of fire licking her skin, fire she could not control, swells up like smoke in her throat. Not again. She clenches her fists, digging nails into her palms until pain drives back memory. The rival alphas do not pause. They surge forward, men shifting mid-stride, bones cracking, claws splitting from hands. Their forms blur into wolves, huge and dark, pelts bristling, eyes like coals. The air fills with the musk of fury. Darius shifts too. Not all at once, not with spectacle, just a ripple, a tearing sound, a king's body bending into its second truth. His wolf towers, black as midnight water, shoulders thick, teeth long enough to carve silence. Power radiates from him in waves that make the ground itself flinch. The clash is instant. Wolf meets wolf in an explosion of snarls and wet earth. Claws rake, jaws snap, torches scatter into the mud. The shrine's stones shiver as if remembering 1,000 battles in their shadow. Diana stands frozen at first, breath jagged, scars pulsing with demand. Her fire rises, begging to pour out, begging to burn every rival down to ash. She can taste it, metal, storm, inevitability. Her vision fractures. In one shard she sees herself unleashing it, the silver fire engulfing wolves and men alike, no difference between enemy and ally. In another shard she sees restraint, her hands empty, her scars silent, Darius torn down beneath the weight of too many teeth. Choice. Always choice. And choice is cruelty. A rival wolf breaks from the melee, eyes fixed on her. Its fur bristles with malice, its growl thick with triumph. She knows what they want, not only to kill her, but to prove to every eye that she is weak, cursed, unworthy of prophecy. It lunges. Her scars scream. Silver fire rips halfway free before she clamps it down with a cry that shakes her bones. The flames lick the wolf's snout, not enough to kill, but enough to send it sprawling back with a yelp, fur singed, eyes wide with horror. The clearing goes still for a heartbeat. They all saw. Wolves mid-battle pause, hackles high, ears flat. She has shown what she swore she would never show again. The rival sees it instantly. See. One roars, half-shifted, his jaw torn between muzzle and man. She cannot control it. She will burn us all. She is no savior, she is doom. The words echo, heavy, sticky, dangerous. Diana feels them trying to chain themselves around her ribs. For years she carried them willingly. Tonight, they scrape, but do not settle. Darius slams his massive frame into the rival speaker, sending him skidding through the mud. His growl splits the air. He stands over Diana without hesitation, his body a wall between her and every accusing eye. But even kings are warned. A voice rises above the din, thick with threat, choose her, Darius, and you lose us. Choose her, and your crown burns. The circle shivers. Diana's scars blaze bright silver, aching with both promise and terror. She looks at Darius, desperate for an answer, a declaration. For a heartbeat his eyes meet hers, fire in them, fury in them, something more tangled than either. And then he hesitates. It is only a breath. Only a second where his silence is louder than any vow. But Diana feels it split her chest open like lightning cleaving a tree. The hesitation is enough. Enough to remind her what it means to be feared more than loved, doubted more than trusted. The prophecy may call her, the stones may mark her, but hesitation is a wound she knows too well. Her throat closes. The flames under her scars surge, begging release, begging to consume. She bites them back, teeth grinding, tears burning hot in rain-chilled eyes. And she runs. Not from the shrine, not from the prophecy, not even from Darius, but from the unbearable weight of almost being chosen. The forest swallows her in an instant, and the battle behind her roars on. But the echo follows, his hesitation. His silence. And silence, she knows, can kill louder than any blade. The forest swallows her anger until only the shape of it remains. Branches knit tight overhead, trading rain for a fine breath of mist. Diana runs until the stitch beneath her ribs becomes a blade and the world shimmers with the thin brightness that comes before collapse. The scars along her side hum a warning, too hot, too loud, too ready, and she banks away from the trees that crowd her path until the ground tilts toward a hollow of rock and ice. The cave finds her like a memory. A narrow mouth, a breath of cold air threaded with old smoke, the sound of a lake just beyond its lip speaking in glassy murmurs as wind drags across its frozen skin. She ducks inside and lets the dark close around her. The quiet is not gentle. It is honest. Her hands tremble, and when she unfastens her cloak, it peels from her like a second, ruined hide. She presses her palm to the scars, just for weight. Not to smother the fire, only to remind it there is a body here, a body with limits and names. Breath by breath, the brightness inside her dims to embers. He does not come as a storm this time. She feels Darius before she sees him. The way the air settles into a deeper rhythm, the way the mouth of the cave seems to square its shoulders. A shadow detaches from the night and becomes a man with rain in his hair and patience in his hands. He pauses at the threshold and lets the cave decide him welcome. It does. He steps in without crowding the space he enters. He does not speak. He kneels instead, as if the simple grammar of need and answer were older than language, and coaxes a fire into being with kindling stashed under a ledge long ago. The spark catches. Flames lift like cautious dancers, stretching, testing the damp. Light moves across the rock and gives back a smaller, kinder world. Heat finds her fingers first. She doesn't reach for it, but she does not move them away. He sets a pot on a flat stone and melts snow into something that will be tea if both of them pretend hard enough. The tip of his knife kisses a pouch, dried leaves tumble, release a scent like winter learning how to forgive. His cloak comes off next, heavy with rain, and he drapes it where heat can teach its softness again. Only then does he turn fully toward her. Her cheek wears a thin line where the tree scolded her, the skin around it bruises toward shadow. Mud paints her shins. Her hands are cut and raw. She has been worse. She has also been better. She holds his gaze, not as a challenge, but as a refusal to look away from the truth of being seen. He offers his palm, empty, open. Not a demand. A question. The simplest kind. She sets her hand in his, not because she yields, but because she is tired of bleeding alone. He cleans the cuts with melted snow and a strip of linen torn from a shirt that has seen other nights and other wounds. His touch is efficient, a craftsman's calm, and where it must be firm, it is firm without apology. When he reaches the place where skin puckers into silvered ridges, he does not flinch. The fire shows everything. He looks, not with hunger, not with pity, but with an attention that steadies instead of steals. The cave breathes with them. The lake outside mutters old news. A wolf, his, by the tone, settles somewhere near the entrance, a quiet sentinel. Trust takes small shapes before it learns to stand. Why do you care? Her body asks, even as her mouth keeps its silence. The answer arrives in a different language. He unwraps a small tin, salve the color of late honey, fragrant with resin and something like thyme. He warms a thumbful between his fingers and lays it along the split on her cheek. The sting is honest, the relief follows. His hands know the map of damage. They also know when to stop. When he sits back on his heels, the fire writes him in copper and shadow. He is less a king in this light and more the man who taught his body to carry weight without leaking rage. The iron band at his wrist dulls, old promises sleeping. He breaks the quiet like a careful lock. My brother, he says, each word a measured stone, died with my hand on him. The flames tilt, listening. The wolf at the mouth does not move. He doesn't make it a story that flatters the teller. He was firstborn. Older by 5 winters. He carried the crown in every look, every breath. The night the old king died, he called the challenge with the ease of a man taking what was already his. He expected a ritual. I gave him a fight. The muscle in his jaw tightens and releases, as if the old bite of it returns in ghost. He wasn't merciful, and I wasn't better than him. I was only the one who did not stop. He turns a palm toward the fire. The scars across his knuckles shine. The crown is a machine that eats. We feed it the ones who might have loved us. I told myself I would be the last it ever devoured. Guilt moves behind his ribs like a tide that forgot low. He doesn't hide it. He doesn't offer it up for absolution, either. He places it between them the way one sets a blade down, edge away, hilt out. Take it. Measure it. Know me by the weight of it. The cave holds the words. So does she. Something in her eases a notch, the kind of loosening that happens when you see a wound you recognize. She answers without voice at first, fingers drifting to the long seam that runs from rib to spine. The night of her first shift lifts inside her like smoke. She lets it lie where it is, and chooses another door. The fire wasn't alone that night, she says, and the sentence lands on the rock with the soft, terrible certainty of rain beginning. The old alpha scented silver before anyone else. He said the ritual needed binding. They braided wire through the circle, thin as hair, bright as moon, said it would hold me safe. Her mouth tastes of old metal. Her body remembers the bite. The wire heated. The circle screamed. Something broke that wasn't supposed to, and the fire came raw. They called it mine because it came from me. She looks at him through the wavering heat. I have had 8 years to agree with them. I do not. A long breath goes in through his nose, out through his mouth. Not disbelief. Consideration. He arranges the facts like stones around a blaze, enough to keep it, not enough to choke it. He bound what he feared, he says at last, and made the fear real. She nods. It is not exoneration she came for. Only recognition that the story was more complicated than a single, convenient doom. The tea remembers itself and becomes drinkable. He pours it into a battered tin cup and offers it. Steam climbs her face like a benediction that doesn't demand kneeling. The taste is smoke-sweet, the warmth a slow hand on a cold back. She drinks and listens to how her chest learns to move without a wince. When he speaks again, the voice is quieter. I sent men after you tonight when you ran. A pause that weighs each syllable. I also called them off. His gaze doesn't waver. I won't command you in the name of saving you. Not tonight. The words find the raw place left by hesitation and lay a bandage there. It doesn't erase the cut. It keeps the wind out. She rises, the movement more sway than stand, and steps closer to the cave mouth where moonlight lays a thin path over stone. The lake breathes in white. Snow moths, flakes too small to earn the name, turn in the air and vanish. She lifts a hand and lets them disappear on her skin. Behind her, leather whispers. Footsteps come and stop where respect says they should. The warmth of him arrives before the heat of the fire can follow. He is not touching her. He is closer than the distance law allows a king to keep without making promises. What is trust? The night asks with a wind like a low song, if not a body learning which edges won't cut. She answers because the air makes it safe. Trust is not a leap, she says, voice rough from too much silence. It's inches. His breath moves the hair near her temple. Then we will count them. She turns a fraction. Enough to bring his face into a sideways grace, the hard lines softened by a light that forgives nothing but shows the truth kindly. He is not handsome in the way bards praise. He is the kind of beautiful that weapons are when their purpose is clean. His hand lifts, slow, the movement declared long before it finishes. Fingers hover over the edge of her hood, over the small white line the branch left, over the place where the scars disappear beneath cloth. He waits. Consent is a country he refuses to conquer. She lets the hood fall. Air kisses the silver map along her throat. Firelight finds it, reads it, translates it into something not monstrous. He does not trace the lines. His palm curls in, holds his own restraint like a vow. I see you, he says, and the words are not a disguise for hunger. They are the architecture of a promise. All of you. Heat rises that is not the caves, not the salves, not even the old, dangerous power. It is the warmth that follows recognition. The space between them shrinks to the size of a breath. Her heartbeat finds a drum it hasn't dared touch in years. If she leans, she will find his mouth. If he leans, he will find hers. The world holds, balanced on the thin wire of almost. The ice outside answers the moment with a sound like glass reconsidering its loyalty. A crack walks the lake. Wolves lift their heads in the dark. The night remembers it is night and not a room made for gentle endings. She steps back half an inch. He accepts the retreat as part of the counting. The fire drops a coal, sparks leap and settle. The tea cools into usefulness for later aches. She draws the cloak around her shoulders, lighter now where rain has left it. He pulls his own tighter and keeps his distance like a man who knows how not to ruin what he wants by wanting it wrong. Sleep comes for her in pieces. He stays awake in the door, a shape carved from watchfulness and oath. When her breathing smooths and the tremor in her hands remembers stillness, he lets his eyes close for the count of 5 and opens them again. Outside, the wind writes one word over and over along the lake's skin until it's a gloss only the moon can read, choose. Inside, inches measure themselves into a map. Trust grows there the way roots do, quietly, stubbornly, toward water. Dawn arrives as if it doesn't trust this city. Light climbs the walls in cautious fingers, finds the high arches of the council hall, and hesitates on old banners that have outlived better kings. Stone swallows sound in the way cathedrals do, not to silence it, but to turn it into something that belongs to the building instead of the mouths that made it. Wolves in human skin line the tiers, alphas, wardens, priests, breath steaming in pale threads, eyes bright with the appetite of verdict. The floor in the center gleams like a frozen pond, black granite veined with silver, polished by generations of judgment. Diana enters without spectacle. Cloak fastened, chin level, the silver under her skin quiet as a held note. The shrine's glow has long since dimmed, but its afterimage lives in her bones. She walks as you do after stepping out of a storm that tried to rename you and failed. Darius crosses at her side with that measured, sovereign gait that announces a king without asking for permission. The hall inhales around them. The inhale is not friendly. This is what change looks like when it meets a room built to stop it, cold stone, hot eyes, hands on hilts pretending to be tradition. The elders sit behind a rail carven with oaths. The iron in it remembers blood. A bowl of clear water rests on a pedestal at the fore, its surface so still it holds the ceiling upside down. Oath water, blessed until belief becomes a flavor you can taste on the tongue. A priestess in white lifts a ladle as though it weighs a history. She does not look at Diana when she speaks. She looks at the room. Truth will be seen, she intones, and those who wish to be relieved of doubt nod as if they have been given a gift. The first cut is small. The water, poured, beads on the granite, breaks into clean circles, threads through hairline channels in the stone toward the center sigil, a star path Diana now recognizes without needing to look. Where the water pools, light wakes. Just a breath. Just enough to say the circle is listening. The second cut is not small. The priestess turns, lifts what looks like a simple clay cup, and offers it as if offering mercy. By law, she says, any who seek a place among us reveal what they carry. Her eyes flick to the line where Diana's cloak hides the map across her ribs. The room does not breathe. The demand is older than language. The trap is older than demand. Darius moves first, not to shield but to shape the air. His voice lands even, controlled. No law asks a wound to perform. The words are careful, the stance careful, the care itself a provocation. A ripple of disapproval rolls the tears. An elder stands, mouth thin and righteous. A king who fears the sight of truth invites lies into his house. Murmurs agree. The priestess lowers the cup a fraction, gracious in victory she hasn't won yet. Diana feels the old heat stir, not the fire beneath her skin, but the heat of humiliation, of rooms that say reveal when they mean bleed for our comfort. She is not 16. She does not mistake an altar for a knife anymore. She unclasps her cloak before anyone can make a pageant of it and lets the fabric fall. The scars along her throat and ribs wake like constellations dragged into daylight. Not bright, not flaring, just that cold, clean silver that looks like moonlight remembered by skin. A low animal sound moves through the hall, not quite human, not quite wolf, awe turned ugly by fear. The priestess tilts the cup and flicks water into the air. Where drops strike those lines, they flare, sharp as struck flint. Gasps. Someone whispers witch fire. Someone else makes the sign you make when you remember to be afraid too late. The third cut comes smiling. A man steps forward from the elder's tier, a figure so perfectly composed he could have been carved. High Warden Corin, Darius's arm once, before crown. A scar bisects his brow like a deliberate thought. His gaze sweeps the room, finds its audience, and then returns to the center as if he has measured exactly how much compassion belongs on his face. He carries a stone disc in both hands, black slate, veined, rimmed in wire thin as hair. Memory stone. You can burn a moment into such rock and make it live again for any who need reminding. We honor truth, he says, and the disc rises. Let us see it. Light spills from the slate like a door opening onto the past. The hall fills with the sound of fire eating a house from the inside out. Screams bloom and scatter. At the center of the projection, a girl stands, silver flames pouring off a body that cannot decide between wolf and woman, a mouth open on a sound too raw to be a word. The vision carries smoke that makes the throat contract even though the room is clean stone and cold morning. They do not show the wire braided through the ritual circle. They do not show a hand tightening a binding. They do not show the moment restraint broke and the breaking became the crime. Her power, Corin says softly, as if regret were a kindness, destroyed those who loved her. The disc tilts, a new angle of horror plays. He doesn't have to shout. The quiet after the showing carries his verdict farther than any roar. The prophecy is clear. When choice is refused, the fire will choose for them. He lifts his chin a degree. She will choose for us. With flame. The room takes the line it wants and twists it once more. Her power will destroy us, an elder repeats, gratefully trading complexity for terror. Heads nod. A hand slaps the rail. Law is a theater, this is its favorite scene. Darius stands like a storm held in muscle. Rage moves under his skin, discipline sits heavier. His wolves look to him and find what they want to find. Some see a king about to defy them. Others see a king about to protect them from themselves. Both cannot be true. He speaks into the crush, and the voice is ground from stone. You show a wound and call it a weapon. You bind a child and blame her for bleeding. Each word is a step onto ice that loves to break. The shrine called her. Not I. Not you. The stones we all swear by. Corin bows the head that is not meant for bowing. Then let the stones bind her now. For safety. He gestures, and two wardens step forward with manacles that gleam too brightly in this light. Moon silver. Oath metal. The stuff that remembers every wrist it ever chewed. Diana's breath shortens. The scorch line of panic tries to climb her throat like ivy. The fire under her scars uncoils with a hiss, furious, eager, wild. She could let it up and end this whole room in a single, bright sentence. She could also burn what should not be burned. She has learned the arithmetic of ruin. She looks to Darius because some part of her still believes inches add up to bridges. His gaze meets hers and holds, and then flickers to the tears, to the faces he has to keep from open war, to the crown that eats. He hesitates. Only a heartbeat. Only enough to tell a room how to hurt her. The wardens move. The metal touches her wrists, and the scars answer the way winter answers iron, with a refusal that looks like rage. Silver flame leaps without permission, a lace of light threading from line to line and back into the manacles. The oath metal shrieks. The smell of hot moon and old blood floods the hall. The first link sags, the second brightens to white, the third bursts. The wardens drop what's left with a curse and leap back as if scalded. Silence rears up like a horse that hasn't been touched in a decade. In that silence she feels what the circle felt, what the shrine taught, what exile sharpened, the difference between power unclaimed and power owned. She does not torch the hall. She does not run. Not yet. Her voice rides the aftershock, low and level, so it has to be listened to. I am not your lesson. I am not your spectacle. The words are not for mercy, they are for memory. You bound what you feared and made it monstrous. Then you asked it to be gentle while you tightened the wire. The elders flinch, but the flinch is anger at being read, not shame for being wrong. Corin lifts a hand, and the wolves who answer orders rather than oaths surge. The first leaps, its shadow crosses her face, its teeth find air where her throat was because the fire under her skin moves her without thinking. She pivots, palm out, and lays a silver brand across its shoulder that will ache whenever it lies. The hall breaks. Stone that has seen 100 verdicts sees one too many. Pillars take on scorch like dawn. Banners sag into ash at the edges. The bowl of oath water cracks down the middle with a sound like a voice deciding not to pray. Darius steps then, finally, fully, body between her and the room, the predator in him no longer polite. His snarl is the first honest thing the hall has heard in years. For a heartbeat the crown forgets its teeth. For a heartbeat she believes inches can still become miles. Then the elders find their courage in numbers. The chant begins, law, order, safety, and the pack answers because fear is a kind of gravity. The weight of it drags even kings. Diana feels the future tightening its net. If she stays, they will make a cage and call it peace. If she burns them, she will be exactly what they begged her to be. The third road is narrower than a breath. She takes it. Silver floods her scars, not in a flood that drowns, but in a river that knows its banks. Light roars up around her like a veil being torn. The nearest wolves stagger, eyes gone wet with stars. Corin shields his face, and for the first time the line of his mouth fails to be clean. Diana turns once, a compass finding north, and meets Darius's eyes through the shimmer. Loss cuts them both. So does something that isn't finished. He doesn't reach. He does not command. He inclines his head the width of a vow he can't speak here. The circle on the granite flares, answers her feet as they find it. She steps into that light and out of the hall. Not through a door. Through the seam between what the city insists is true and what the shrine has already decided will be. Outside, daylight stands waiting, colder than any night. Behind her, voices collide and shatter. Ahead, the wind writes a single word on her skin until it sinks, transform. She does not run this time because of fear. She leaves because the woman who will come back cannot fit through the door they offered. The kingdom burns at the edges. From the hills, smoke rises in twisted banners. Shadow beasts prowl the ruins of outposts, their eyes burning with the red of curses too old to name. Wolves howl, not in warning, but in terror. Diana stands at the edge of the battlefield, the air thick with ash and the scent of blood, her scars thrumming with a rhythm she can no longer deny. In the heart of the chaos, Darius is on his knees. Chains of dark iron pin his arms behind him, his crown shattered at his feet. The rival alphas ring him in triumph, their wolves pacing, waiting for his final surrender. They have no fear of her. Not yet. The sight tears through her like claws. For 8 years she believed the scars were only reminders of what she lost. Tonight they are a map, a script, a weapon. She steps forward, cloak sliding from her shoulders, the silver beneath flaring bright. Gasps ripple across the enemy lines. Some stumble back. Others bare their teeth, desperate to deny what their eyes insist is true. The first beast charges. She doesn't move. The scars ignite. Silver fire erupts, a sheet of light that wraps the beast mid-stride. Its snarl dies in a choking wail as flame consumes it, leaving only the memory of fur on the wind. The battlefield freezes. "I am not your curse," Diana says, voice steady, carrying. The flames crown her shoulders, spiral down her arms, dance in her hair until she looks less like a woman and more like the prophecy itself. "I am not your sacrifice." The rival alphas lunge together, wolves and men blurring in a frenzy of fur and steel. She answers with a sweep of her hand. Fire arcs outward, not wild this time, not ruinous. Controlled. Precise. Each rival struck staggers as if branded by judgment itself. Stone cracks beneath their paws. The very earth quakes in agreement. Darius lifts his head. His eyes find hers through the chaos. For the first time in years, there is no hesitation in them. Awe, yes. Fear, yes. But also devotion carved raw. He does not speak, he doesn't need to. The bond is written in flame and blood. The chains holding him shatter when her fire grazes them. He rises beside her, no longer shield, no longer king alone, but something fiercer, witness to her ascension. The last rival snarls, teeth dripping with hate. "You'll burn us all." "Then burn," she answers, and her flames surge. Not a flood. A tide that knows its mark. The rival collapses, wreathed in silver, the prophecy sealing itself in screams and silence. When the fire fades, the field is still. Wolves bow their heads, some in reverence, some in terror. The ground itself smolders, runes etched in ash where her power touched. Diana breathes deep. The scars cool, but the glow does not leave. It never will. She looks at the wreckage, at the kneeling pack, at the man who now stands at her side, and speaks the truth that has waited 8 years to be born. "I am not the end," she says. "I am the reckoning." The world listens. And this time, it believes her. The battlefield holds its breath. Ash drifts like snow across the ruins. Wolves crouch low, ears pressed flat, their eyes reflecting the silver glow still lingering in Diana's scars. The silence is not peace. It is the hush that follows a storm, when even the earth is unsure if the worst has passed. All around, wolves whisper. Savior. Witch. Queen. The words slip like knives, each cutting different, none landing the same. Darius moves to her side, free now, shoulders squared, crownless but not diminished. His voice is low, meant for her alone. "You terrify me." The words should wound. Instead, they steady. He breathes once more, eyes dark with something between awe and surrender. "And I love you for it." Her throat tightens, but she does not answer. Not yet. She feels the weight of every gaze on her, the faithful, the fearful, the undecided. They do not see Darius's hesitation in the council chamber. They see only the fire that chose not to devour them when it could have. She lifts her chin. The wind catches her cloak, tattered and scorched, and for an instant she is silhouette against the pale dawn, woman and myth stitched into one body. Her voice carries, clear and cold. "You saw me burn, and you called me cursed. You chained me, and you called it law. You feared me, and you called it truth. But I am still here. I stand, and the fire stands with me. No one dares answer. The air holds her words like scripture freshly carved. Her eyes sweep the field. Every bowed head, every trembling paw, every set of eyes struggling between worship and dread. She does not need to tell them what she already sees. Half of them will never trust her. Half of them already do. And in between lies a fracture that could split the kingdom forever. The prophecy whispers through her scars, when choice is refused, the fire will choose for them. But prophecy is a mirror. What it shows depends on who dares to look. Diana steps forward, silver still smoldering across her throat. The crowd shifts, uneasy, as if the ground itself has tilted beneath them. She pauses at the edge of the silence and leaves the question hanging, a blade balanced on air. Would you have chosen me, she asks, voice threaded with both fury and ache, or would you have feared me too? The words roll through them, an accusation and a plea all at once. Wolves shift on their paws. No one answers. The silence grows teeth. Her gaze lifts to the horizon where dawn breaks over scorched hills, bleeding gold into ash. Is fire a curse, she asks again, quieter now, or is it the only light strong enough to guide you? The field shivers. No answer comes. Only the sound of the wind carrying her challenge farther than any crown could. And then her voice softens, turning not to them but to the unseen listener, the one who waits beyond the screen, beyond the story, in the quiet spaces between heartbeat and breath. If this tale lit something inside you, she whispers, lyrical as the flame that refuses to die, then walk with us. Subscribe to the Alpha's Romance Library. Because here, we tell tales that burn. The fire in her scars dims, but the silence she leaves behind is louder than any battle cry. Dawn tries to paint the battlefield gold, but ash refuses the color. The wolves scatter into uneasy silence, some kneeling, some slinking back into the shadows with fear biting at their heels. Diana stands at the heart of it all, the fire cooling in her scars, her breath rising like smoke. For one fragile moment, it feels as though the war has ended. The kingdom breathes in relief, as if a single night could rewrite centuries of prophecy. But peace never lingers this long. The ground shudders beneath her boots. At first, it seems like the last echo of her flames. Then the tremor deepens, rolling through the valley like the heartbeat of something buried too long. Stones shift. Cracks vein across the scorched soil. Wolves lift their heads, ears twitching, hackles high. The air thickens with the sharp, metallic taste of change. Diana's scars flare again, faint but insistent, as if warning her, not finished. She braces herself, gaze sweeping the horizon. Beside her, Darius tightens his jaw, every inch the warrior, every inch the king, even without a crown. Then the voice comes. Low, distant, stretched thin by centuries of silence, yet powerful enough to make every wolf bow its head without meaning to. It rises from the trembling earth, from the cracks, from the marrow of the world itself. She is not the only one scarred by fire. The words slide through the morning air, slow and cold, and the world seems to lean in to hear them. Wolves whimper. Darius stiffens. Diana feels the syllables etch themselves into her bones. From the mist at the far edge of the battlefield, a figure emerges. Cloaked, tall, moving with the inevitability of tidewater. At first, only shadow. Then the hood falls back. Eyes gleam, not silver like hers, but molten, deep and burning like coals that never cool. Across the figure's throat runs a scar bright as embers, alive with its own fire. The sight steals Diana's breath. For 8 years, she believed she was singular, alone in curse, alone in exile, alone in the weight of a destiny that chewed her bones raw. But the proof steps toward her now, each footfall sparking against the earth. Another. Another marked. The wolves recoil. The ground splits wider, coughing up smoke that twists into the air like the tails of ancient spirits. The stranger halts at the line where Diana's fire has scorched the ground. The smile that curves their mouth is sharp, knowing, terrible. You thought the prophecy was yours alone, the voice rasps, echoing not only from their throat but from the air itself. Child of flame. But every prophecy lies. There is more than one fire. More than one fate. Diana's scars thrum so violently she can feel her pulse in every line. Questions crash through her, who? How? Why now, but none reach her lips. The only sound she makes is the harsh, steady rhythm of breath meant to hold the shape of courage. The stranger tilts their head, gaze piercing. The true alpha has not risen. Not yet. When they do, your fire will bow. The words hang like a blade suspended by a single hair. The tremors fade. The air stills. But the unease remains, coiled tight around every throat. The figure turns, cloak sweeping ash into spirals, and melts back into the mist as if the world itself reclaims them. Diana stands frozen, silver light flickering faintly beneath her skin. Darius steps closer, his hand hovering near hers but not touching, as though even he cannot decide if this moment belongs to comfort or to fear. The dawn finally breaks across the horizon, spilling its gold across ruins and scars alike. Yet no one feels warmth. Only the weight of a truth that refuses to be forgotten. This is not victory. This is prologue. And somewhere in the hollow echo of the battlefield, the prophecy rewrites itself. This isn't over.